live from the drama-free true crime destination. No doubts, no delays, just the facts, the fire, and the finality that stands tall. This is the final word.
And welcome to the final word on this 30th day of January, going on to 31st. Welcome one, welcome all inside the drama-free true crime destination known as Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. So good to have you aboard this evening, and we've got a lot to get to. So, without any further ado, we are going to go ahead and kick things off with my opening statement. And my opening statement says a lot like this. Tonight, we step into a landscape of cases that test the limits of justice, the boundaries of family, and the meaning of accountability in a world where violence too often begins at home. An appeals court in Florida has affirmed the conviction in the Boy in the Box case, reaffirming that cruelty disguised as discipline is still cruelty. Prosecutors say the Alexander brothers followed a playbook of predation in a series of sex attacks. And in Georgia, a teenager accused of murdering her mother and stepfather is denied bond once again as the court weighs the gravity of the allegations against her. Across the country, we see the ripple effects of violence inside the home. A convicted killer's wife now charged as an accessory in a staged home invasion murder. Delbert Cornish is sentenced to life for killing his own daughter. Daisy Link is facing new assault charges as she fights for a new trial. And a toddler falling from a moving SUV, leading to a mother's arrest for child abuse. Family ties are shattered in case after case. A brother pleads guilty to murdering and dismembering his pregnant sister. A mother in Florida accused of suffocating her 4-year-old son. A Michigan man charged after a woman and her teenage sons are found murdered in their home. The self-described number one dad allegedly admitting to killing the fiancé and 2 sons while sparing his own. We revisit the brutality revealed in the autopsy reports of the 4 University of Idaho students and a new video allegedly showing Michael McKee stalking his victims weeks before a double murder. In New York, prosecutors are pushing for a July trial for Luigi Mangione as his federal case looms. And I have an update on that part as well. A Utah man is convicted of killing his brother-in-law, but he's acquitted of conspiracy. A new judge will oversee the sentencing of Alicia Andrews after her successful appeal in the murder of Julio Fulio. And a former Illinois deputy is sentenced for the killing of Sonia Massey, another case where the badge became a weapon instead of a shield. We close with 2 tragedies born of deception. A man is facing sentencing for killing an Uber driver sent to his home by scammers. And a Facebook marketplace meeting that turned into a nightmare, ending with a pregnant mother stabbed 70 times. Different states, different motives, different victims. But one truth ties them together. Violence doesn't erupt in a vacuum. It grows in silence. It grows in secrecy. And it grows in the shadows we refuse to confront. In the words of Julie Grant, that's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. You know how to get in contact with me. Facebook, X, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'll have it all covered all over the platforms. Hey, you can even email me too. See at the end of the video, you'll see every which way you can get a hold of me. Right now, we're gonna go ahead and get this thing started with the boy in the box case. The Yeah, that's where we found out the appeals court affirms the boy in the box conviction for Tim Ferritter. This is one of my very first cases that got me into the true crime community, and the one that ticked me off so bad when I first got it. This is coming out of West Palm Beach, Florida. Florida's 4th District Court of Appeal has affirmed the conviction of a man sentenced to 5 years in prison for locking his adopted son in a windowless garage room, rejecting arguments that evidence of prior abuse in Arizona unfairly prejudiced the jury. The appellate court issued a brief per curiam affirmation on January 22nd, upholding the lower court's ruling in the case of 48-year-old Tim Ferritter, who was convicted in 2023 of child abuse, false imprisonment, and child neglect for confining his teenage son in an 8-by-8-foot box in the family's Palm Beach County garage for 45 days. The boy, known publicly only as RF to protect his identity, had no control over the lights or air conditioning and was forced to use a bucket as a toilet. Ferritter still has the option to file a motion for a rehearing with the appellate court. During oral arguments before the 4th District Court of Appeal on January 8th, Ferritter's appellate attorney, Leonard Feuer, argued that the trial court abused its discretion by allowing prosecutors to present extensive evidence of how Ferritter treated his son during the 3 years the family lived in Arizona before moving to California. The evidence of abuse in Arizona was so much more severe than the 45-day period in Palm Beach County, Feuer said. It was also unduly prejudicial, unfairly prejudicial, and should have never been admitted. According to court records, the Arizona evidence included testimony that Ferritter smacked his son in the face, grabbed him by the neck, hit him with a jump rope or belt, and held him up against the wall. Ferritter's daughter testified that she feared her father would kill her brother in Arizona and that she would hear sounds of slapping or hitting, followed by her brother's screams. Feuer argued that the Arizona evidence became an impermissible feature of the trial, particularly when the state's expert witness, Dr. Wade Myers, incorporated it into his testimony. The expert repeatedly stated that the son was in solitary confinement for 3 years and testified that the treatment constituted torturous behavior that could not be justified under any circumstances. Once you ring a bell, you just can't undo it, Feuer said. The defense attorney also argued that Dr. Myers improperly testified about the ultimate issue of guilt by negating Ferritter's defense theory that his actions constituted reasonable parental discipline of an out-of-control child. Feuer said the trial court prevented the defense's own expert, Dr. Report, from offering similar options for the defense, supporting the defense theory, creating an unfair imbalance. Assistant Attorney General Rachel Goldblum countered that the Arizona evidence was properly admitted because Ferritter's primary defense was that his actions were a reasonable response to his son's escalating and dangerous behavior. If that behavior is allowed in, and we're looking at whether the defendant's actions were malicious, neglectful, or torturous, then we also need to have the full context of how he addressed the child's behavior over that entire time period, Goldblum said. She argued that the Arizona evidence showed a continuing course of action, not a desperate, last minute, isolated attempt to address certain problematic behavior. Goldblum emphasized that the state focused the majority of its evidence on what occurred in Florida, presenting approximately 8 hours of ring video footage from the garage room. By contrast, the state presented no video evidence from Arizona, relying only on testimony from the victim and his sister. When you look at the actual conduct that took place and what the state was presenting, the confinement was similar, Goldblum said. The room he was in was similar. The amount of time and the treatment. The fact that there were locks outside the door. That there was a light that only the parents could control. That there was no bathroom. That the majority of the meals were in the room. The appellate panel appeared troubled by the discretion question. One judge noted that while reviewing the case, they kept thinking that was the call the trial judge made, making it difficult to find an abuse of discretion. Fewer also challenged the trial court's decision to grant a downward departure in sentencing. While Farrader faced up to 40 years in prison, the judge sentenced him to 5 years, citing the pressures of parenting and Farrader's struggle with how to discipline his child. The state cross-appealed, arguing that the downward departure was improper because it contradicted the jury's verdict, which found Farrader's actions were intentional, deliberate, and planned. Goldblum argued that the trial court's own comments at sentencing undermined the basis for the departure, noting that the judge described Farrader's actions as methodical, calculated, and planned, and said Farrader showed no remorse. Feward defended the departure, arguing that a trial court can base a downward departure on mitigating factors not specifically enumerated in Florida's criminal punishment code. The court's observation that this was not a run-of-the-mill child abuse case reflects the court's understanding that Mr. Farrader's actions were in response to a situation that he just did not know how to address. At Farrader's original sentencing, both he and his son addressed the court. An emotional Farrader told the judge, "I have failed." The victim, now 16, told his father he still loved him, but described being locked up as dehumanizing and like genocide. Farrader's wife, Tracy, was charged with the same offenses, but accepted a plea deal that allowed her to avoid jail time. She was sentenced to 10 years of probation and 300 hours of community service. The appellate court did not issue a ruling from the bench. A written decision is expected in the coming months. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Tim Farrader, are you really going to shoot your shot for this? Are you really going to shoot your shot for this? You're really going to go ahead and appeal this decision? Then by all means, brother, go ahead. Shoot your shot. But know this. You catch the right judge on the right day. The 5 years you're spending behind bars now could be 5 years 8 times over. And according to my elementary school mathematical education, 5 years 8 times over, that's about 40 years, which would have been your original sentence, and the judge did it right the first time. Just saying. But like I said, go ahead, buddy, shoot your shot. But like Julie said in her opening statement earlier this week, there is a good possibility you'll end up shooting yourself in the foot. Next up, a judge once again has denied bond for a Georgia teen accused of killing her mother and stepfather. We're going to go right to Carroll County, Georgia. A Georgia judge denied bond again for a 17-year-old charged in the murder of her mother and stepfather. Carroll County Superior Court Judge Dustin Hightower said he saw no material change in circumstances that would warrant releasing Sarah Grace Patrick from custody, where she has been held in solitary confinement since her arrest in August 2025. The judge cited ongoing concerns about flight risk, potential witness intimidation, and community safety. Patrick is charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault in the deaths of stepfather James Brock and her mother Kristen Brock. She turned herself into authorities in July 2025 and has been held without bond since her indictment in August 2025. Her trial is scheduled for August 2026. During the reconsideration hearing, Patrick's defense attorney argued the teenager has no criminal history, no driver's license, no passport, and no means to flee. Defense counsel emphasized that Patrick voluntarily turned herself in from Alabama and has strong community support, pointing to 21 character letters submitted to the court and dozens of supporters who fill the courtroom. Patrick's maternal grandfather, Dennis Nolan Sr., testified that his granddaughter poses no threat to him or anyone else. He confirmed that she has never been arrested before and said he would ensure she returned to court if released. Patrick's maternal grandmother, Lou Ann Bruce, who has custody of Patrick's younger sister, echoed those sentiments. She said she talks to Patrick every day and has no reason to believe she would flee. During cross-examination, prosecutors revealed that both grandparents, along with Patrick's biological father, DJ, have signed contracts with a media production company worth approximately $100,000 for post-trial content. None of the money would go to Patrick or her sister, the grandparents testified. The state argued that this media deal intensified flight risk concerns. Judge Hightower acknowledged the media contracts as new information that factored into his decision. He told the grandparents he had to consider that they could potentially benefit from increased publicity if Patrick were released. The defense proposed strict conditions, including house arrest, ankle monitoring, no cell phone use, no social media access, and no contact with witnesses or the victim's family. Defense counsel suggested Patrick could stay with a friend just over the Alabama state line. Prosecutors objected, noting Patrick would be leaving Georgia's jurisdiction. The state also read a statement from Kim Bowling, the sister of James Brock, expressing fear for their safety and concern about witness intimidation. The defense argued that Bruce and Nolan, as the mother of the deceased, should carry more weight than other family members. Defense counsel also emphasized Patrick's age and the mental health implications of solitary confinement on juveniles, noting she was a juvenile at the time of the alleged incident. The attorney argued that the trial date being pushed back to August 2026, an additional 8 months should be considered as a factor. Judge Hightower addressed Patrick directly, explaining that the continuance was necessary for fairness to both sides and that a year and a half from indictment to trial is fast for a murder case. The judge said he anticipates monthly conference calls to ensure the case stays on track for the August trial date and indicated he does not want to continue the case again. Patrick remains in custody at the Carroll County Jail. And until trial, that is where she will stay. So, as far as that is concerned, let's be remiss here. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. They mentioned it briefly, but Sarah Grace Patrick was 16 when this occurred. She's 17 now and being tried as an adult. But I want you to think about that. I'll be right back, guys. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyways, I was saying Sarah Grace Patrick, 16 when this incident occurred. She's 17 now, and she's being tried as an adult. This is that case of don't do the crime if you can't do the time. This is not. She's not. If she's found guilty when the trial takes place in August, she's not going to be sentenced to juvenile delinquents, juvenile detention. This is she's going to adult prison. There's no ifs, no ands, or buts of that. She can be 17 all she wants to. She'll be 17 serving the rest of her life likely behind bars. Adult prison bars. Sure. She took responsibility by turning herself in. But look at the severity of what she did. She took the life of her mother and her stepfather. Then on top of it, now all this is allegedly. Now I gotta express that. Also, she allowed her younger sister to find the bodies of mom and stepdad. This ain't a game here. And if Sarah Grace Patrick thinks about treating this case like one, I guarantee it's going to end up with her taking a very huge L. Next up, the wife of a convicted killer is being charged as an accessory in a home invasion hoax murder. We're going right to Pontiac, Michigan for this case. The Oakland County prosecutor has announced charges against 34-year-old Amanda Eliana Hernandez, the wife of one of the two men convicted in the 2024 murder of a local jewelry store owner. Amanda has been charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Excuse me. Every time I hear the words first degree and the word murder usually comes right out. Let me try that again. Amanda has been charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree home invasion, accessory after the fact, and conspiracy to commit false impersonation of a utility worker. Oakland County prosecutors Karen McDonald said in a statement, Sam Murray was a beloved father and husband. His family continues to grieve his loss. I'm grateful to the investigators who continue to pursue everyone involved in this horrible crime. We will continue fighting for justice for the Murray family. Joshua Zuazo and Carlos Hernandez were convicted of first-degree felony murder and unlawful imprisonment in separate trials for their roles in the murder of 73-year-old Usain Murray of Rochester Hills. Judge Yasmin Pohl sentenced both men to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Investigators say the two posed as DTE workers to gain entry into his home. Then, once inside, they killed Murray and tied up his wife. During the hearing, Murray's three sons spoke, and one read a poem that Murray's widow wrote about him. According to testimony, the suspects took Sam Murray to the basement, where they tied him up and killed him. Linda Murray was upstairs making breakfast when the men came upstairs demanding jewelry and cash. I was screaming, and Hernandez hits me in the face to cover my mouth. Linda Murray testified when asked about her reaction to seeing blood at the scene. Again, this is another don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Amanda is simply simply there. That's the best way I can put it. She was there. Therefore now they got her hemmed up on charges just of with her simply just being there. I mean, conspiracy to commit first-degree home invasion, accessory after the fact, and conspiracy to commit false impersonation of a utility worker. If all that could very well be, she could have worked the details out with Zuazo and her husband Carlos, and the two executed the plan. And even that, ladies and gentlemen, even that little nugget of information is more than enough. They'll put you right behind bars too. So there's that. Good luck defending yourself on that one, Amanda. You're gonna need it. Next up, Delbert Cornish has been sentenced for his daughter's murder. Let's see what the video is going to show. We're going to get the verdict or the sentencing. Let me take a peek real quick.
Pled guilty to count 1, murder in the first degree, count 2, assault with intent to commit murder, count 3.
Oh, that's definitely the sentencing. Okay. and break this down via the article. We're in Canyon County, Idaho for this. An Idaho man was sentenced to life in prison without parole after pleading guilty to murdering his daughter. In November, Delbert Cornish pleaded guilty to the first-degree murder of Hope Onyx Cornish. In a courtroom confession, Delbert told the judge, "I pulled the trigger. I shot my daughter." During the sentencing hearing, the state laid out its case, saying Delbert shot Onyx, who prosecutors referred to as his stepdaughter, through the top of the head on the morning of August 18th. After the shooting, he sat in Onyx's presence as she gasped for air for 20 minutes before she died. He later placed a pride flag over Onyx's body and shot the family cat, Sammy. In the hours after the killing, Delbert watched TV and drank liquor for hours as he waited for his son Lucian to return home from school. When Lucian returned home, a conflict ensued, and he disarmed his father, escaped the house, and called 911. The state then argued that the defendant should spend life in prison without the possibility of parole. The defense explained that Delbert suffered from mental health and substance abuse issues during the time of the shooting. However, they admitted there was no excuse for Delbert's actions. The defense added that Delbert would like to pen an apology letter to Lucian. Addressing the court, Delbert expressed regret over his actions. "I apologize to LGBTQ community," said Delbert. "I wish my son was here. I wish I could apologize. Once I saw his eyes, I couldn't do it. I hope I get to talk to him one day." Onyx's mother, Crystal Thompson, delivered an impact statement during the hearing saying Onyx deserved to grow up. She deserved a future. Delbert was also sentenced to 29 years in prison for assault with intent to kill and 6 months for cruelty to animals, both to be served consecutively to his sentence of life in prison. So to recap the full sentence, Delbert Cornish, for murdering his daughter, is being and the assault with intent to kill is serving life plus 29 years. Then tack on another 6 months for, what was it? Animal cruelty? Yeah, animal cruelty. At the end of the day, Delbert Cornish will not see the light of day. And to put a nice bow on it, that's justice served. Period. Because bottom line, the girl should live. The girl should been able to live, grow up, do whatever she wanted to do with her life. But her very own father cut her life short. Now he has the rest of his life to think about it behind bars. Next up, Daisy Link is facing new assault charges while she's fighting for a brand new trial. Back to Florida we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to Miami. A Florida woman fighting to have her murder conviction overturned is now facing felony assault charges after allegedly attacking a fellow inmate in prison. Oh, Lord. 30-year-old Daisy Link was convicted of second-degree murder in the shooting death of her partner, Pedro Jimenez. A judge is currently weighing Link's request for a new trial as she continues to insist that she shot Jimenez in self-defense. In a criminal complaint reviewed by Court TV, investigators say that Link attacked an inmate who had been alone in their cell, unprovoked on Monday, January 26th. The victim reported that Link punched her in the face and head at least 15 times. The victim said the two did not exchange any words and denied knowing the reason for the alleged attack. Two other inmates listed as witnesses told corrections officers that they saw Link inside the cell with the victim, but denied seeing any violence. The victim sustained a minor injury to her upper lip and a minor scratch to her nose. The report notes that surveillance video of the alleged incident is not available. Link was appointed to a public defender on the new charges at her first appearance on Tuesday, according to court records. The judge is expected to rule on Link's motion for a new trial February 6th. I mean, it's bad enough. It's tough enough that you're fighting for a new trial. But the last thing you want to do is end up putting yourself in a situation to where you're getting hit with assault charges for beating up another inmate. You just reduced your chances of getting that new trial. In my opinion, of course. She's reduced her chances of getting that new trial and thus could still end up being behind bars anyway, with more time tacked on. But then again, we'll have to wait and see what the judge rules. Here's a story that had my mind going all week. A toddler falls from a moving SUV, and the mother is arrested for child abuse. Okay. Now, before I bring, and no, I'm not playing a video, I'm reading the actual article, but still I want to do this the right way. Before I read the first words in the article, this is a trigger warning. This is one of those stories that could be triggering to your mental health. And if you wish to avoid a story like this, turn away now. This is your opportunity to turn away from this and come back in about 5-10 minutes. Okay, you've been fairly warned. This is in La Habra, California. A California mother was arrested after her 19-month-old child fell from a moving SUV at an intersection, police said. 39-year-old Jacqueline Hernandez of La Habra was taken into custody this week after investigators identified her as the driver in a viral social media video showing a toddler tumbling from the passenger side of a black SUV. Police said the incident occurred January 20th at the intersection of North Euclid Street and West Malvern Avenue. In the video, the SUV is seen making an eastbound turn onto West Malvern Avenue from southbound North Euclid Street. As the vehicle completes the turn, the front passenger door opens and a small child falls to the ground and into the roadway. The SUV immediately stops, nearly causing a traffic collision with the vehicle behind it. An adult female is then seen running from the driver's side of the SUV, picking up the child and returning to the vehicle. The Fullerton Police Department became aware of the video circulating on social media and launched an investigation. On January 24th, 2026, a witness came forward and provided identifying information related to the vehicle involved. Once officers conducted a follow-up investigation that led them to a residence in La Habra. Officers located the vehicle, the child, and Hernandez. The toddler sustained injuries consistent with the fall and was transported to a local hospital for treatment. The child is expected to make a full recovery, thank God. Hernandez was arrested and booked at the Fullerton City Jail on felony child abuse charge. Following news of Hernandez's arrest, the Orange County District Attorney's Office stated on Tuesday that charges have not been filed in the case. Hernandez has since bailed out of jail and will not appear in court this week, according to prosecutors. The Fullerton Police Department did not receive any calls for service related to this incident and is seeking additional witnesses. So, guys, this is where you come in. Anyone with information about this case is encouraged to contact the Fullerton Police Department's Sensitive Crimes Unit, Detective H. Rios. That number is 714-738-6782. Let me go ahead and pull that. Let me go ahead and punch that in for you so you can get all this information in. This is the let's see. Fullerton PD Sensitive Crimes Unit. And that number is 714 738 6782, or you can get in contact with H. Rios at fullertonpd.org. All right, there you go. There you go. There's the information you need. If you have any information at all about this case, you want to contact the Fullerton Police Department Sensitive Crimes Unit, Detective H. Rios. The number is 714-738-6782. 714-738-6782. Or you can email that information to hrios@fullertonpd.org. hrios@fullertonpd.org. And as always, I can't express this enough like I normally do with missing persons cases. If you see something, please say something. That way we can do something. And in this case, the something we can do is let justice prevail on for the sake of that 19-month-old toddler. All right. Now that we got that part, we're going to move forward we're going to go right back across the country to New York, where a witness at the Alexander Brothers sex trafficking trial details alleged rape in that case. Looks like this one's going to call for another trigger warning. Yep. Dealing with the sensitive nature in this case, this is definitely another okay, here it is. The trigger warning is back up again for this one. All right. Now that you've been fully warned, we're going back to New York. The first witness at the sex trafficking trial of three brothers, two of them high-end real estate brokers, testified Tuesday that the thrill of attending a party at actor Zac Efron's apartment turned into a nightmare when hours later, one of the brothers repeatedly raped her at their home and taunted her about it. The woman, who testified under a pseudonym, is one of several alleged victims expected to testify against brothers Tal, Orrin, and Alan Alexander, who are accused of teaming up to drug and rape women and girls over several years. Lawyers for the brothers say the sex was consensual. Prosecutors say the Alexander brothers used their ties to the wealthy and famous to lure multiple victims. The woman said she was 20, an anthropology major in college, when she met two of the brothers at the party at Efron's apartment. She accompanied a friend who had recently met Tal Alexander, who invited her there to watch the last game of the 2012 NBA Finals. She said she had little interaction with Efron, who was not accused of any wrongdoing. After the game, the woman went to an after party at a Manhattan nightclub, where she said she was given a drink and remembered little afterward until she woke up naked on a bed in another apartment with Alan Alexander, also naked, standing over her. And she said she repeatedly tried to get up, but he kept pushing her back, prompting her to say, "I don't want to have sex with you." "Ha ha, you already did," she recalled him saying as he laughed in my face. She said he then overpowered and raped her. While it was happening, Tal Alexander walked into the room briefly, but did nothing to stop the attack, the woman told the jury. "He seemed super nonchalant," she said. Assistant U.S. Attorney Madison Smizer said in her opening statement to the jury that the Alexander brothers masqueraded as party boys when they were really predators. Smizer said they used whatever means necessary, including luxury accommodations, flights, drugs, alcohol, and sometimes brute force to lure women into situations where they could be raped. Attorney Tenny Garagos, representing Orrin Alexander, urged the jury to reject prosecutors' monstrous story. She said the brothers, who got out of college in 2008, were successful, ambitious, and sometimes arrogant as they pursued women in nightclubs, bars, restaurants, and online in what is known as hookup culture, hoping to have as much sex as possible. "You may find this behavior immoral, but it is not criminal, Garagos said. She said some of the brothers' accusers were hoping to enrich themselves with lawsuits and spoke of themselves as victims only after feeling regret that they had done illegal drugs or had sex outside of relationships with their boyfriends. Attorney Dina Paul, representing Tal Alexander, warned jurors that the subject matter of the case was disturbing and will seem like an R rated movie, especially after prosecutors portrayed the brothers as monsters. In their early 20s, Tal and his brothers were party boys. They were womanizers. They slept with many, many women, she said. She urged the jurors to reject the criminal charges against the brothers if they conclude that the accuser's testimony was unreliable. Orrin and Tal Alexander were real estate dealers who specialized in high-end properties in Miami, New York, and Los Angeles. Their brother Alan graduated from New York Law School before running the family's private security firm. Tal is 39 years old, while Alan and Orrin, who are twins, are 38. An indictment alleges the men had conspired to entice women to join them at vacation destinations such as New York's Hamptons by providing flights and luxury hotel rooms. The brothers have been held without bail since their December 2024 arrest in Miami, where they lived. During her testimony Tuesday, the trial's first witness said she fled the room where Alan Alexander had attacked her after he fell asleep. The woman remained composed through much of their testimony, though she got choked up several times. She cried as she recalled reaching out several years later towards after the attack to friends she had told about the experience so she could be reminded that others loved her. I believe I have a bit of an update that goes with this before I can comment on it. So get a let me get a look at my docket. Do I have that? I should. I guess I don't. Okay. Anyway. Anyway, the update had something to do with the playbook that the brothers ran, and according to that testimony, the brothers ran that playbook to perfection, and I believe it's going to be that very same playbook that can land all three of them behind bars. Not sure, yeah, I could say, yeah, that kind of behavior is reprehensible. Yeah, this is not the kind of thing that this is not the kind of thing that should be played that should occur. That's not the type of behavior of a man in a professional setting like real estate. In your early 20s, yeah, that sounds like a case of being young and dumb, but still, there's no excuse for that. And I hope the jury can look at the evidence in this testimony and say the same thing, that there is no excuse for that kind of behavior or the actions that go with it. Next up, a brother is pleading guilty to murdering and dismembering his pregnant sister. What? Yeah. From New York, we're going to Lakeville, Minnesota. A Minnesota man pleaded guilty to murdering his pregnant sister and her unborn child, but he still will face a trial on his mental illness defense. 24-year-old Jack Joseph Ball pleaded guilty to premeditated first-degree murder and premeditated first-degree murder of an unborn child last week. That's according to announcement by prosecutors. Ball was accused of killing his sister, Bethany Ann Israel, age 30, and dismembering her body in his Lakeville home on May 23, 2024. Israel was around 18 weeks pregnant at the time of her death, according to a medical examiner. According to the criminal complaint, the victim's mother called police just after 11 p.m. on May 23rd, saying that her daughter had gone to have dinner with her brother at a home in Lakeville, but failed to return home. When the mother went to the residence to investigate, she told police she saw Ball and he just tore out of the house. When she approached the residence, she saw blood and feared for her daughter's life. When police arrived, they found a large pool of blood on the kitchen floor and on the cabinets. They also found a bloody saw, a hatchet, and large knives covered in blood. While looking through the home, they also found several dismembered body parts believed to belong to Israel. Police began to search the area and surrounding communities for Ball, and while doing so, received another 911 call from a resident who saw the suspect placing what appeared to be a body part on their front step. Police confirmed there was a body part left outside of the home and found Ball nearby, covered in blood. Investigators also found other body parts near the property. According to a press release, Ball has asserted a defense of mental illness. Minnesota law states that a person is not criminally responsible if a mental illness makes the person unable to understand what they were doing or know that it was wrong at the time the offense was committed. A court trial is scheduled for May 21st at 9 a.m., where the state will litigate Ball's defense of mental illness. If convicted, however, Ball faces life in prison. Wow. Yeah, that's another one of those cases. I wish I had put the trigger warning up. And I still have another one just like it. But getting back to this one, my God. First off, that's your sister. Second of all, she's 18 weeks pregnant. And I read somewhere that he made the comment that he had to do it because, quote, she was no longer pure. When I read it, in my head, I'm quoting Steve Harvey after the naked grandma question. What the huh? It boggles my mind how you can commit such a heinous act. I mean, okay. He murders her and her unborn child. And then takes, let me go ahead and get this right here. Let me get this right here. He's using a saw, a hatchet, and large knives to dismember the body. And for what good reason? Because in his eyes she was no longer pure. He admits to doing it, but under Minnesota law, he gets to use mental illness as a defense. I guess we'll have to wait till May to see how that all plays out. From Minnesota back to Idaho. Autopsy reports revealing the brutality of the murders of the Idaho Four. And of course, gotta do it. In fact, you know what I will do? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change my bottom line here from the title from this edition of the Final Word. I'm going to change that to the trigger warning. That way I can go ahead and post the I can put up the copyright information before I play this video. There we go. There's that. Now, here's the copyright information. And now I am going to prepare this and I'm going to get out of the shot where you can get all of this.
Newly unsealed autopsy reports in the brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students reveal the harrowing final moments. Investigators say the killer stabbed Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin more than 100 times. These new details showing the horror of the night, the violence of the night, and the evil within the killer. Tonight, we will go through all this new information and ask the question, why didn't prosecutors seek the death penalty for this monster? I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments, and we've got some new material to show you from the Idaho 4 case. And let me tell you, worse than we thought. And we thought the worst of this guy. But could you imagine that the information as it's coming out, revealing a scene inside that home that you can't imagine, the attack on these 4 young people and what they were subjected to. Unreal. We've got the details for you tonight. Horrific bloodshed in that house. This was kill, this was overkill, this was, I mean, the picture that's painted in my mind tonight is a sort of a manic episode where this guy just has the adrenaline going through the roof. roof and is just taking it out on the next person that he sees. And once you hear these details, you're going to be really surprised that he did not go after Dylan. Because remember, Dylan sees him. I don't know if he sees her, but amazing that in light of what we're learning now, that 2 people were spared in that house. Now, the other part of this, once you hear and you'll get the details of all this horror, the prosecutor gave him a deal. I cannot get over this. I still cannot get over this. And the reason being, it is a state that has the death penalty. And if you don't seek it against this guy, then who would, wait till you hear the details. Who else would be eligible for this? This is who it's designed for. But the prosecutor gave him a deal. And that's why I always ask the question, did they get justice? And you could say, well, some of the families didn't want the death penalty. At the end of the day, should the worst of the worst be punished, the most severe? At the end of the day, in a state that has the death penalty, meaning the people of that state elected people into office who put that on the books, which means the people want it in that state. But you're not giving it to him, so is that truly justice? We could talk about that, but first let's dive into some of these new details and to help us understand the findings from the autopsies. I want to bring in forensic death investigator, host of the very popular Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. Joseph Scott Morgan is with us. Thanks so much for being here. This is going to be a tough,
of course, man.
This is going to be a tough little segment, but I brought you in because you understand these death scenes. You can put some context and perspective for us. So I want to start with Xana, and let me read some of the stuff, and then you can kind of break it down for us. Cause of death: multiple sharp force injuries while also suffering abrasions and contusion of the head, torso, and extremities. Awake at the time of the attack. 67 stab wounds, 25 incised wounds of the upper extremities, 23 stab and incised wounds of the scalp, face, and neck, 7 stab wounds of the chest, 4 stab wounds of the abdomen, 3 incised and puncture wounds of the back, 5 incised wounds of the lower extremities, punctures of the outer table of the skull, perforations of the jugular vein, heart, lung, and pulmonary blood vessels, hemorrhage into the chest cavities, wounds extending into the bones of the right hand, scrapes and bruises on the face, torso, and extremities, blood on the bottoms of her feet. Joseph Scott Morgan, what story is this telling about what happened to Xana?
Well, let's start with the feet, Ben. I know that seems rather innocuous, but that gives us evidence that she was upright and mobile, at least for a few moments, that she fought. You don't get this contact trace blood elements on the feet without that having occurred. And then we move to the hands. This is evidence of an awareness, because these sound to me, at least, Finn, as though these are consistent with defensive wounds. So she's parrying any kind of attack like this back, trying to block. She's awake and alert at that moment in time. And then you begin to get into all of these other planes of the body that are insulted. So it's not as though that the perpetrator is merely advancing on her face to face. She's whirling about, okay, because you've got insults posteriorly, anteriorly. You've got them on multiple surfaces of the skull and the face. And it's not just sharp force injuries, Finn. They talk about incised wounds, which are slices. You have stab wounds, which are penetrative wounds. But then she's also got bruises or contusions, which means we're talking about, in addition to all of this, blunt force trauma. You mentioned a term earlier that I've heard you mention for many years, and I concur with this. This is, in fact, overkill. This is a frenzied event. I can't necessarily go to motivation, but I can tell you, Vin, that cases like this that I've worked over the years, this goes to being fueled by intense anger, fear, all of these sort of things. And if we believe what the narrative is that we've heard over and over, Xana was that kind of, she was that individual that stood between him and getting clear of this environment. He did not expect to encounter her. So he's like a caged animal, with emphasis on animal here, Vin.
Let's get to our next victim, Kaylee Gonzalez. Cause of death: multiple sharp force injuries, while also suffering asphyxial injuries and blunt force injuries of the head. Stabbed a minimum of 38 times. 24 stab and incised wounds of the scalp, face, and neck. 11 stab and incised wounds of the chest. 3 stab and incised wounds of the upper extremities. Punctures of the outer table of the skull. Injuries to the teeth and tongue. Perforations of the subclavian artery and vein and hemorrhage into the chest cavities. Blunt force injuries, scalp laceration, bleeding around the brain, nasal fracture, scrapes on the nose and cheeks, bruising around the eyes, patterned bruises extending across the lower face, bloodstains on the body, bed, and wall indicate her posture and position changed during this event. What story does this tell about Kaylee?
When you think about this child, Vin, let's just go to, because I know a lot of people are curious about this idea of the external table of the skull. And the external table of the skull, there's a top layer to the skull, if you will. So this is a non-penetrative injury to the skull itself. So what this means is, with the utilization of this blade, and keep in mind, this K-bar blade is very robust. At its heart, this is a combat knife, okay? Very resilient, very robust. So if you think about the blade itself kind of glancing off of the skull itself, it will in fact chip that external or outer table of the skull every time that this occurs. Then we begin to think about the hemorrhage that you see inside of the cranial vault. That's because of this concussive event where she's being pummeled. There's a lot of this pummeling that's going on here, because the knife in a fist, or the fist wrapped around a knife, he's essentially doing this and then driving the blade, I think, into her face. And if anybody gets a chance to look at the K-bar, if you flip it on its end and you look at the base of this thing, it actually looks like a hammer, okay? And that's what Marines have used this thing for. It's not just a combat knife, but it's a utility knife. So it can be used as a bludgeon. It's fascinating when they begin to talk. Did you notice what you had mentioned? If you go back to that, they talked about a pattern, the pattern injuries. Well, if you have a pattern injury, that means that it marries up with some type of object, right? And my suspicion is that during this kind of blunt force trauma, you've got these patterns that are appearing on the face. And one more thing about this poor young lady is that you said there were a minimum of wounds. Do you know why they're saying that instead of being specifically qualifying there? Because you have intermingled wounds that are communicating with one another. And so even in the autopsy room, when you're trying to make sense of what you're seeing, you'll have cross communications between insults, and sometimes you cannot accurately count them. This is a very concentrated attack all over her. She had an awareness. We think about being in a recumbent position, maybe prone or supine. As she's sleeping, she reacts. She rises to this. So the attitude that she's in physically is adjusting relative to the attacker.
All right, let's go to Kaylee's best friend, Madison, Maddie Mogan. Cause of death, multiple sharp force injuries, 13 stabbed and incised wounds to the scalp, face, and neck, 10 incised wounds of the upper extremities, 5 stab wounds of the chest, wounds to the lung and liver, perforations of the subclavian vein, subclavian artery, and blood vessels of the chest wall, an incision of the nasal septum, and a perforation of the tongue. One other thing, if you could give us your opinion on, does any of this give you any indication of who may have been murdered first?
Not, you know, you do that at your own peril, and any forensic pathologist or medical legal death investigator out there would say the same thing. All we can merely do is give you an indication of the number of insults that have occurred, the level of trauma. It's very, very difficult to put this in order. I wish we could so desperately, but we can't. It's almost an empirical impossibility to do that. Maddie's injuries are unique to her in the sense that you begin to think about, she's got, if you touch the underside of your nose, this is your septum right here. So she's got an incised injury that literally goes across this area, clips the nasal septum, as it will. So the blade is literally being dragged across her face at this point in time. She's also, again, this facial attack that's going on. And I've thought about this a lot, Vin, in the sense that I think that one of the 2 young ladies in that room were the target. Obviously, I think that's been talked about extensively. I know that you have, and so have I. But when you combine the level of trauma that both Maddie and Kaylee have sustained inside of this environment, this is almost an effort to disfigure. That's why I think that upon the initial event, when the perpetrator entered into this room, first off, I think this is probably sexually motivated. I think there's an adrenaline dump because this is driven by his lust. I think he's surprised when he gets in there because there's 2. So now you're heaping on top of that adrenaline dump. You've got fear and anger that are coming in, and he just goes wild in this environment and begins stabbing them repeatedly over and over and over again. He very well could have gone from body to body. Okay, and that has happened over the course of my career. I've seen that occur. There would be DNA evidence on that knife where you would have commingled DNA, I think probably, and on other surfaces, of course. We don't know where that knife is. Lord only knows. I hope it's found at some point in time, but we don't have it. Both of these girls were extremely disfigured and attacked. You know, whereas if you think about Xana, her wounds are more randomized. You know, they're over multiple planes. These 2 victims, you have this kind of concentration where he's really focused on the face here, Vin.
Final victim, Ethan Chapin. 6 incised wounds of the upper extremities, 6 stab and incised wounds of the lower extremities, 4 stab and incised wounds of the scalp, face, and neck, 1 stab wound of the upper chest, perforations of the jugular vein, subclavian vein, and subclavian artery.
Yeah. So what stands out to me about Ethan's injuries, specifically, the concentration is up here. For folks that are wondering where the subclave is, if you'll find your clavicle, your collarbone right here, the subclavicular clavicle runs beneath there. It's a major blood supply. So you're going to have a lot of internal bleeding with this. It doesn't seem as though that Ethan really moved from the position that he was in. But one thing that's always struck me as odd with Ethan, and I think you probably know where I'm going, Vin, are these insults that he has on his lower extremities. These seem to be incised wounds, and I don't, and look, in the heat of the moment, maybe the confined space in here, you can't explain it because you've got somebody that's reacting in anger, but in that concentration, they're that low on the body. I've never been able to make sense of it or what the purpose of that was. And of course, I don't think that we will ever know that, but Ethan certainly is traumatized to a great extent as well. There is not as much facial disfiguration with him. I don't think that the perpetrator spent as much time in his efforts to kill Ethan as he did the others.
Joseph Scott Morgan, your insight is the best, and really, I think, gives us all a much clearer understanding of what happened here to these 4 victims, and we appreciate your time tonight. Joseph Scott Morgan, thank you.
You're quite welcome, my friend.
All right, let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, criminal defense attorney, former head New Jersey County prosecutor Bob Bianchi, along with former police lieutenant, trial attorney Rick King, and finally, national parenting and family relationship expert, Dr. Sue Kornbluth. Okay, here's my question I'll throw out to everyone, which is the way this all ended was with a deal. The man who did all the damage that Joseph Scott Morgan just went through, and what these 4 children, they're young adults, but from my perspective, they're children. The suffering, the pain, the wounds, the evilness of what happened and what took place here. He got a deal. And this isn't a debate of the death penalty. Idaho has it. It's on the books. Bob, why don't you start us off?
Well, Vinny, as a guy who's actually done death penalty litigation, and I'm not a fan of the death penalty, but I've been there. And one of the reasons I'm against the death penalty is because of the chaotic way in which it's administered and not administered. Random decisions by prosecutors to pursue it or not. Yet, when it was the law in the state of New Jersey, it's no longer. I understood that I took an oath that I had to follow the law, not Bob Bianchi's opinion, but what the law says. Now, as you indicated, this state has a death penalty, and this is exactly the reason I'm against it. If not the Koberger case, then what case? How is it fair to be putting people on the death penalty for far less egregious murder cases? This is literally sadistic murder, multiple victims, a very solid case in the guilt phase. No doubt in my mind, the conviction in the penalty phase. If the death penalty has a picture of what case it is, it's the Koberger case. So not only did the prosecution cave in giving it away, Vinny, I think you know me well enough to know, even if I felt I was going to lose, I'd rather fight the battle and lose rather than to give it away. You're going to have to take it from me. But they weren't going to lose. And the second and last point that I've got to make with regard to this is the prosecutor offers this deal without requiring the defendant to debrief fully and truthfully the reasons, what fors, where fors, how come, and motive. He lets the families now have to just kind of figure it out and kind of see this stuff happening over and over again, not really understanding why. I almost think it's like excuse me, but like some sort of emotional breakdown happened with the decision maker on this case, because there is no legal explanation in all the years I've done it. If there was a case that I would pursue for the death penalty, and I'm not a fan of it, it's this one.
I mean, for me, Vinny, I could not imagine, I could not understand for the life of me why this was not a death penalty case. I mean, this was obviously one of the worst kinds of ways to murder these beautiful young students, and it was full of so much rage and passion. Like he had an agenda to just take out whatever was going on inside of him, and just take it out on these innocent young ladies and gentlemen. And it's just so brutal that I can't imagine why this would not be a death penalty case. I mean, isn't this what the death penalty is all about?
So, Vinny, first of all, let me say this, like Bob, and for Bob's reasons and many more, I'm also not a death penalty advocate. and I thought I heard that you earlier. I thought I heard you say that some of the family was against it, and in some ways I can understand that, because what they want is they want fast finality, and they want to avoid the craziness of the appellate process when it comes to the death penalty. I will tell you that listening to the doctor speak or the forensic investigator speak about what that was, very difficult. Despite all my experiences, still very, very difficult to listen to, and my heart goes out to that family. But maybe, and in here in Florida, we have the Marcy's Law, where the victim they get a lot of input as to what happens at the conclusion of cases.
No.
And so
No.
here, I'm sorry. So here,
sorry, Rick. That's why the indictments read the state of such and such versus the victims have rights to be heard. They don't have rights to direct the case. I get it. I know what it's like to bring victims through a trauma like that, but you have an obligation to follow the law, Rick. I'm sorry. The victim's opinions make a difference, but that's even disputed in this particular case. And
well, it was split. It was split too.
I just got finished posting on via YouTube in the chat that how lucky Brian Kohlberger is. First of all, I'll say it again for added clarity. In a case like what we just covered, and we covered this case for quite some time. I personally cannot stand plea deals. I can't stand it. You got somebody who literally went out of his way. I don't know what was going on in his mind, but he literally brutally stabbed 4 innocent college students more than 100 times collectively. And this part I'm reading from the article. Brian Kohlberger, 31 years of age, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in a deal that spared him from the death penalty, despite the brutal nature of the crimes detailed in the newly released medical examiner reports. Xana Kernodle suffering the most extensive injuries. 67 wounds to her body. 67 wounds. I got a story coming up a little bit later where a pregnant mother was stabbed a whopping 70 times. Now, you tell me if that's not overkill. You tell me that's not overkill, and I will show you that story and prove you dead wrong. Anyway, it's horrific. I mean, again, Xana Kernodle, 67 wounds to her body. Kaylee Gonzalez, stabbed a minimum of 38 times. Maddie Mogan, attacked with a similar ferocity, suffered 28 stab and incised wounds. And the fewest of the four, Ethan Chapin, suffered only 17 stab wounds. Those two roommates surviving the attack. But getting still, for what? Number one. And number two, he gets away with it, sort of, with a plea deal to take the death penalty off the table. Now, I'm not a fan of the death penalty either, but if you deserve it, you deserve it. And I'd say if it wasn't for the fact that Brian Kohlberger is serving life in prison without the possibility of parole, I believe that man should have a ticket and go to Vegas, because that's him. That's how lucky he is. Yeah, he's lucky. Next up on the docket, we have new video showing Michael McKee stalking the Teppies weeks before the double murder. Maybe we'll get to take a look at that as well. All right. Just my luck. We have parts of that video right now. I am going to bring back the copyright disclaimer. I am going to take myself out the shot once again, and you're going to see this video for almost 7 minutes and change, and catch Michael McKee stalking the Teppies weeks before the double murder.
State of Ohio versus Michael McKee. It's 26 CR 253. There are 5 counts. 4 counts of aggravated murder, unclassified felonies, and 1 count of aggravated burglary, felony 1. Each of these counts come with a 3 and a 6-year firearm specification.
Brand new details tonight relative to the murders of Spencer and Monique Teppie in Columbus, Ohio. Couples married for 5 years, 2 young children in the house. In the middle of the night, her ex-husband is the one who has been charged. Michael McKee, Dr. Michael McKee, believe it or not, vascular surgeon Michael McKee. This is from the Columbus Dispatch, who's doing great work on this case, by the way. Michael McKee, court documents say he stalked Monique before killing the couple. According to court records, they say, video showed McKee going into the area of the Teppie home on December 6th. This is weeks before. And then showed him leaving a few hours later. The affidavit described the area McKee entered as the curtilage, which is legally considered part of the house, but typically thought of as the yard, outdoor buildings, porches, other similar areas. And you know in that house they've got the front, but they have that very unique backyard as well, where they have a garage, sort of a courtyard, and then the house. Okay, the Columbus Dispatch also reporting Michael McKee, the Teppies were at the Big Ten championship football game that night. That's in Indiana, court records say. Monique left the game at halftime to return to the hotel, and court records say Spencer told friends that Monique was upset about something involving her ex-husband. She was upset about something involving her ex-husband on December the 6th, on the same day where he's on video walking around the curtilage of the property. Probably captured on her video. I wonder if she's seeing the video. Let's bring back in our think tank Bob Bianchi, Rick King, Dr. Sue Kornbluth. Rick, this is very enlightening to me. First of all, so this wasn't like all of a sudden goes to the planning, the plotting. First of all, what the heck is he doing there for a few hours on December 6th?
I mean, you have to imagine if they got him on the curtilage, what that tells me is that he was on the outside of the property somewhere and they saw him, coming onto the property and to the yard or the backyard or someplace like that. And probably during that 2-hour time frame that they lose him, I'm imagining, of course, I'm imagining that he was probably planning some way to get in at that point, because if you're there for 2 hours and you're within the curtilage, within the the circumference of the house, you're doing something, and maybe he was trying to foster or plan his way in to the residence.
Yeah, we're looking at this right. This is that courtyard I was telling you about. That's the garage. On the other side of the garage is that alleyway that he was caught walking down allegedly on the morning of the murders. So the curtilage could be all of this area. What is he doing there, Dr. Sue?
Oh, I think he's casing out the place and planning on how to enter this home and planning what he's going to do, and in terms of, what happened, and that he was so enraged. There's a history of him being enraged. There was a report, I believe, that he had attacked her at one point or forced her to have sex or something like that in an article that I read. But we talked about this, I believe, last week. And I said, you're going to find that there is something with them that was going on, and that he probably was obsessed with her. I still believe that, and wanted to get rid of both of them.
Bob, you think there's any chance, because we know this home has the punch keys. I'm wondering, like, you go online, you can get these little cameras you can stick anywhere and pick up a signal remotely. I mean, it's not that complicated these days. Do you think that was part of this mission, to figure out what the code was so he could come back and get into that house when they were actually home? And how on earth did he know that they were at the Big Ten championship game?
Great points, Vinny. I mean, certainly those things that you're bringing up right now would be part of my investigation. We just don't know that data now, but what we do know is that clearly this was a premeditated attempt of lots of surveillance. I mean, this is not unusual that we see in our prosecutor world. We would always say today's domestic violence and domestic abuse is tomorrow's homicide case. We see lots of people that just can't let go, and they engage in all sorts of surveillance, electronic surveillance. They're putting tracking devices on vehicles and on individuals. And it sounds like this guy's meeting that description exactly. Just a guy that just lost his mind, arrogant, doesn't care, throwing his life away, and he can't have her, and no one's going to have her. And even if he's got to throw his own life away in jail for the rest of his life, that's what he's going to do. Unfortunately, for those who are out there, this is not an
We've got more. This is what Dr. Sue was talking about. Friends of the Teppies told investigators after the couple's death that Monique had told them McKee had been abusive toward her when they were married and had threatened her both during their marriage and after it. At least one witness told investigators that McKee had forced unwanted sex and strangled Monique. According to court records, McKee also made comments about, quote, he could kill her at any time, court records say, and that he would find her and buy the house right next to her, that she will always be his wife? This answers a ton of questions, Rick King, but she couldn't protect herself. She couldn't protect herself. This is like 10 years after the marriage.
Right, and you know, Vinny, when you're looking at this case, there was a restraining order, but it wasn't the kind that we normally associate with. This restraining order was done in the beginning of the divorce to prevent each party from going into the bank account and dissipating funds. But what she needed, and I don't know that it would have actually worked, but at least it would be something. She needed a restraining order to keep him away from her, something to try at least give the police some sort of leverage if he's in the area to make an arrest, if he is doing these type of harmful things to her.
Again, I posted two comments in the via the YouTube chat, and they just popped up. First off, my theory of apparently one of the members of the think tank. First of all, let me shout out Vinny Politan and Court TV's closing arguments in their think tank for their coverage of both this and the Kohlberger case. Somebody in the think tank agreed with my thinking on as to what Michael McKee was doing while the Teppies were at the Big Ten championship game on December 6th. So my thinking was this: Michael McKee, in my opinion, was casing the house to find the best way in so he could attack, kill, and get out quickly. That's my thinking. I'm sticking with that. And I also had this crazy feeling as I followed the story that this is one of those cases of if I can't have you, no one can. And apparently it's so much worse than that from what I'm hearing, because this guy seems to me like he was obsessed with Monique, and he was willing to do anything, just as long as he could have her. Is it weird to me? Yes, but that's what obsession will do for you. That's what obsession will do for you. All right. I mean, we got a Luigi Mangione update for you. We have a Luigi Mangione updates for you. First off, New York was seeking July trial for the state case as a federal trial looms in the fall. Manhattan prosecutors urged the judge on Wednesday to set a July trial date in Luigi Mangione's state murder case in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, 2 months before jury selection is set to begin in his federal death penalty case. In a letter, Assistant District Attorney Joel Seiderman asked Judge Gregory Carroll to begin the New York trial on July 1st, arguing that the state's interests would be unfairly prejudiced by an unnecessary delay until after the federal trial. The state trial has not yet been scheduled, and the next hearing isn't until May, when Carroll is expected to rule on a defense request to exclude certain evidence. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office raised the scheduling issue days after U.S. District Judge Margaret Garnett said jury selection in the federal case would begin September 8th. with the arrest happening either in October or January, depending on whether she allows prosecutors to seek the death penalty. If the death penalty is still in play, the second phase of the federal trial, including opening statements and testimony, will begin January 11, 2027. That's what Garnett said at a hearing last Friday. If it's not, opening statements will be held October 13th. Capital cases are more complex and require more time to prepare. In his letter to Carroll, Siderman argued that state prosecutors were involved in the investigation from the start, while federal prosecutors joined the case about 2 weeks after Thompson's death, charging Mangione a day after he was indicted in state court. It is entirely natural that when the state case will proceed to trial prior to the federal case, the prosecutor wrote, citing legal precedent. The state, he said, has an overriding interest in trying this defendant for the cold-blooded execution of Brian Thompson. At the time of Mangione's arrest, Manhattan top federal prosecutors said he anticipated the state case would go to trial first. It isn't just a matter of scheduling. Under New York law, the district attorney's office would be barred from trying Mangione on state murder charges if his federal case goes to trial first. The state's double jeopardy protections kick in if a jury has been sworn in a prior prosecution, such as a federal case, or if that prosecution ends in a guilty plea. Mangione is due back in court in a federal case Friday, with Garnett set to rule on a variety of pretrial issues, including whether it remains a capital case and whether prosecutors will be permitted to show jurors some of the evidence debated in the state case. Those items include a 9mm handgun that prosecutors say matches the one used in the killing and a notebook in which they say he described his intent to whack a health insurance executive. Mangione has pleaded not guilty to federal and state murder charges. The state charges carry the possibility of life in prison. He is due back in court for a conference in a federal case on Friday. In his letter, Siderman told Carroll that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is ready to proceed to trial and that any outstanding pretrial issues in the state case can be resolved before July. After holding a 3-week hearing in December on the defense evidence request, Carroll said he wouldn't rule until May 18th. 50-year-old Brian Thompson was killed on December 4th, 2024, as he walked to a Midtown Manhattan hotel for United Health Group's annual investor conference. Surveillance video showed a masked gunman shooting him from behind. Police say delay, deny, and depose were written on the ammunition, mimicking a phrase used to describe how insurers avoid paying claims. Mangione, a 27-year-old Ivy League graduate from a wealthy Maryland family, was arrested 5 days later at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which is about 230 miles west of Manhattan. In September, Carroll threw out state terrorism charges, but kept the rest of the case, including an intentional murder charge, in place. In the federal case, Mangione's lawyers want prosecutors barred from seeking the death penalty and want at least some charges dismissed, arguing that authorities prejudiced him by turning his arrest into a spectacle and by publicly declaring their desire to see him executed. As for the evidence, Mangione's lawyers contend the Altoona Police Department illegally searched his backpack because they had not yet obtained a warrant. Prosecutors say the search was legal. Officers were following Altoona police protocols, which require promptly searching a suspect's property for dangerous items and later obtain a warrant, prosecutors said. Now, before I even go ahead and give you my commentary on that, like I said, we have an update on that from that hearing that was scheduled for on Friday. And that update is that the federal murder charge against Luigi Mangione is dismissed. me one moment, guys. Apparently the video is having issues loading. Yeah. Can't seek the death penalty. United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, the judge ruled Friday, failing the Trump administration's bid to see him executed for what it called a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. U.S. District Judge Margaret Garnett dismissed a federal murder charge against Mangione, finding that it was technically flawed. Garnett left in place stalking charges that carry a maximum punishment of life in prison. The 27-year-old Mangione pleaded not guilty to federal and state murder charges. The state charges also carry a possibility of life in prison. Jury selection of the federal case is scheduled to begin September 8th. The state trial hasn't been scheduled yet. On Wednesday, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office sent a letter urging the judge in that case to set a July 1st trial date. 50-year-old Thompson was killed December 4th as he walked in the downtown Manhattan hotel for the United Health Group's annual investor conference. We're going to move forward with that because I read that in the earlier article. Following through on Trump's campaign promise to vigorously pursue capital punishment, Attorney General Pam Bondi ordered Manhattan federal prosecutors last April to seek the death penalty against Mangione. It was the first time the Justice Department was seeking to bring the death penalty in President Donald Trump's second term. He returned to office a year ago with a vow to resume federal executions after they were halted under his predecessor, President Joe Biden. Garnett, a Biden appointee, ruled after a flurry of court filings in the prosecution and defense in recent months. She held oral arguments on the matter earlier this month. So once again, if if it wasn't for Mangione facing charges, right now, here's another guy who could get a ticket to Vegas because that young man is lucky. Lucky. So right now, he's got stalking charges which carry a sentence of life in prison if convicted, and that's on a federal level. And he's got these state murder charges also carrying a possibility of life in prison. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens as this case continues to unfold. Next on the docket, we got a verdict watch. The verdict is a Utah man accused of killing his brother-in-law and conspiracy. What is his fate? Let's see. Guys, we'll go ahead and pull the. Actually, no, I won't. In fact, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and drop the copyright information at the bottom of the screen. Video is gonna be rather quick. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and pull this back up. Mm. This thing's trying my patience. Seriously. All right. Okay, here we go. All right, so there's the copyright information down at the bottom. I'm gonna take myself out of the shot, and you're gonna hear the verdict in this case. Utah man accused of killing his brother-in-law and conspiracy. Let's go to the jury.
State of Utah versus Kevin Stanley Ellis, case number 241100884. As to count one, we, the jury, impaneled in the above entitled cause, find the defendant as to count one murder as charged in the information guilty. We, the jury, impaneled in the above entitled case, having found the defendant guilty of murder as charged in count one, further unanimously find that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that imperfect self-defense does not apply. As to count two, we, the jury, impaneled in the above entitled cause, find the defendant as to count two, conspiracy to commit murder as charged in the information, not guilty. As to count three, we, the jury, impaneled in the above entitled cause, find the defendant as to count three, obstruction of justice as charged in the information, guilty. We, the jury, impaneled in the above entitled cause, find the defendant as to count four, commission of domestic violence in the presence of a child as charged in the information, guilty. As to count five, we, the jury, impaneled in the above entitled cause, find the defendant as to count five, commission of domestic violence in the presence of a child as charged in the information, guilty. As to count 1, 2, 4, or 5, we, the jury, impaneled in the above entitled cause, find that at the time of the offenses in count 1, 2, 4, or 5, that Kevin Stanley Ellis and Matthew Rastelli were cohabitants. As to count 6, we, the jury, impaneled in the above entitled cause, find the defendant as to count 6, possession of a firearm by a Category 2 restricted person as charged in the information, guilty. As to count 7, we, the jury, impaneled in the above entitled cause, find the defendant as to count 7, possession of a controlled substance, cocaine, as charged in the information, guilty.
Thank you.
Okay, here's that breakdown. In Provo, Utah, jury convicted a Utah man of killing his brother-in-law, but not in a murder plot, as prosecutors argued. Kevin Ellis stood trial on multiple charges, including murder, criminal conspiracy, and obstruction of justice in the July 12, 2024 death of Matthew Rastelli. Ellis admitted to pulling the trigger and shooting Matthew Rastelli, his brother-in-law, 7 times but maintained he was acting in self-defense. Ellis told detectives that he believed the victim had been armed with a knife. Detectives said the victim wasn't armed and had been lured to the property by Ellis' sister, Catherine Maselli, who was also the victim's wife. Catherine had taken the couple's children from their California home to visit their mother. Text messages made clear that Matthew thought he was driving to pick them up and bring them home. Prosecutors argued Catherine never planned to leave with Matthew and instead plotted with Ellis and their mother, Tracy Grist, to murder him when he walked through the door. A knife that was found in Matthew's hand at the scene was linked to a purchase made by Grist months earlier. Among the digital evidence, prosecutors introduced internet searches conducted by the family related to the Donna Adelson case. Adelson, as you know, was a fifth person convicted in the murder-for-hire plot that killed her former son-in-law, FSU law professor Dan Markell. Ellis and Grist's cases were severed in 2025, with a judge deciding that Ellis's case would move forward first. Catherine pleaded guilty to murder and conspiracy charges in September 25 and was sentenced to 1 to 15 years in prison. Ultimately, a jury convicted Ellis of Matthew's murder, but acquitted him on the charge of criminal conspiracy. He faces life in prison at his sentencing, which will be scheduled at a later date. So, Kevin Ellis. So as I was watching it. I was watching it from my end. I posted it here as well. Kevin Ellis is found guilty of murder, not guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty of obstruction, guilty of domestic violence, guilty of possession of a firearm, and guilty of possession of a controlled substance. So I guess we're gonna have to wait till to find out exactly what kind of punishment Kevin Ellis will receive at whatever the sentencing will be. Next up, I know the title's gonna say one thing, but I wanted to give it a different title. A monster is accused of suffocating her 4-year-old son in a Florida home. I know the title says mother, but anyone that'll do that is a monster in my book. I'll save that commentary for at the end of the article. We're in St. Petersburg, Florida. A Florida mother accused of suffocating her 4-year-old son had her first appearance in court on Wednesday. 43-year-old Diana Cullum is charged with first-degree murder in the death of Finley Cullum. A medical examiner determined the child had been suffocated, according to the St. Petersburg Police Department. Police responded to the scene on Tuesday after a teenage girl found her mother holding her 4-year-old brother in a bed after arriving home from school. Police said Diana had self-inflicted stab wounds, and there was blood at the scene throughout the house. Authorities initially believed Finley had been stabbed due to the blood at the scene. Diana was transported to the hospital for treatment. Her injuries were non-life-threatening. She was booked into jail after she was released from the hospital. Authorities said a note was found along with a knife at the scene, and the father was not home at the time of the incident. Okay, let me put on my criminal mind thinking hat here. And my assumption would be this. She suffocated her 4-year-old son and then attempted to take her own life. Failed. Got caught and arrested. And now She's facing murder charges for killing her own son. She tried to take her own life because she knew she wasn't going to get away. She wasn't going to get away with murder. She knew she was going to get caught. So her easy way out was to attempt to take her own life. But like I said, she failed at that. I'll keep an eye on this case leading to the trial, and we'll see what happens then. Next up, this is pretty much the same article. I got this one from Core TV and from People Magazine. It's a man charged after a Michigan woman and her teen sons were murdered in their home. The man is described as a self-described number one dad. So now we're going to go from, from St. Petersburg, Florida. We're going to go from there to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Prosecutors have charged a Michigan man after a woman and her teenage sons were found dead in their home. Kent County prosecutors charged Charles Broomfield with 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder in the deaths of Jacqueline Neal, in the middle, as you can see on the screen here, and her 2 sons, 15-year-old Cameron Kilpatrick and 13-year-old Michael Kilpatrick. Newly filed court documents detailed that Broomfield called 911 about 7:40 a.m. Tuesday morning, saying there was a shooting. Dispatchers noted the caller was crying so much they couldn't get much information out of them, other than that some people possibly broke into the home and someone was shot. When officers got to the home minutes later, they found Broomfield in the living room near Neal's body. Officers noted that he was calm and did not show any signs that he had been crying, according to court records. Broomfield told officers his 5-year-old son was upstairs. He and his son were escorted out of the home by police. Along with Neal's body in the living room, investigators found the bodies of Cameron and Michael in their bedrooms. Broomfield told police Neal was his fiancée and the boys were his stepsons per court filings. During an interview with police on Tuesday, Broomfield claimed 2 people he did not know broke into the home. He claimed he was upstairs and heard someone talking with Neal. Broomfield said he went downstairs and saw one person pointing a gun at her, according to court documents. The other suspect chased Broomfield upstairs, he claimed. At that point, he heard shots from downstairs. The person who followed Broomfield upstairs allegedly grabbed a gun from an unlocked gun safe, then threatened the 44-year-old and his 5-year-old son. Broomfield told detectives he pleaded with the person not to hurt either of them. The armed individual ultimately left the room without shooting. That's according to Broomfield's claim. He said he heard gunshots from the bedrooms of his stepsons, but he was busy trying to comfort his 5-year-old. Broomfield told police he called 911 after looking outside and seeing prints in the snow showing the assailants had left. He claimed the whole situation took just minutes and that he picked up the phone shortly after the people left. His story didn't match the evidence police collected at the scene, according to authorities. A canine track led officers to a gun box in the backyard. The box was locked, police found, with tracks in the snow showing someone from the house had walked out to it and back inside on Tuesday. Broomfield's gun was located inside the box. The key to the gun box was found in Broomfield's bedroom. And this is Charles Broomfield here. Ballistic evaluation of bullet casings in the home showed that just one weapon was used to kill all 3 victims, according to court records. Officers did not find any tracks in the snow around the house to support the claim of multiple people entering and exiting the home. Again, that's according to court documents. Medical personnel determined Neal and her sons had been dead for nearly 40 minutes before officers arrived on scene, much longer than what Broomfield's recollection of events would allow for. During an extended interview with investigators, Broomfield confessed to shooting Neal and her sons per court records. He is charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, along with the use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. If convicted, he could spend the rest of his life in prison. Yeah, number one dad. I must have taken that article out. Let me see if I can pull up a link at the very least, and bring it to you that way, because that one still still looking. There it is. So describe number one dad. Yeah. Mm-hmm. A distressed Broomfield call 911. Okay, so we're pretty much confirming the same thing I just read from Court TV's article. Jacqueline Neal and her teen sons Cameron and Michael fatally shot in Grand Rapids, Michigan home on January 27th. That's according to court documents cited by 13 ABC and WOOV TV. Shouts out to them. They're also a report by WWMT, 13 ABC, and WOOV TV covered the explanation by Broomfield. They documented the distressed 911 call. Following alleged inconsistencies, the Count Broomfield reportedly confessed to the crimes and was arrested. In those documents, investigators allege Broom initially told police he was walking downstairs in the home where he saw an intruder pointing a gun at Jacqueline Neal, ran back upstairs to his 5-year-old. He allegedly told police a second person followed him upstairs, and as they came face to face, he could hear gunshots downstairs. Second person then took Broomfield's gun. Anyway, investigators at the scene found a photo with Broomfield and his son that read "Number One Dad." Number one dad. Okay. But the number one dad killed his fiance and his 2 stepsons, sparing his only child, sparing his own 5-year-old kid. That depends on your line of thinking. Anyway, he did appear virtually in court with his attorney on Thursday, said he didn't understand the murder charges against him, prompting the attorney to explain it. according to WOOD-TV. When asked by the judge if he understood the weapons charges against him, he responded, "Yes, I guess." The judge denied him bond, citing the serious nature of the crime and concerns that he might be a flight risk. The Kent County Prosecutor's Office was not reachable, and Grand Rapids Police did not respond to people's requests for further information. Which now prompts the last outlaw to bring to you a public service announcement. If I can get to that point. If it will allow me to do so. Okay. Give me 1 minute. Okay, come on. There we go. There we are. And this is where I begin my PSA. This is for everyone. One, because not only men and women can experience domestic violence. You do not have to subject yourself and become a victim of domestic violence. If you or someone you love are experiencing domestic violence, you are urged to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is 1-800-799-7233. 1-800-799-SAFE. Or go to thehotline.org. Thehotline.org. All calls are toll-free and confidential. The hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in more than 170 languages. You do not, I say this again, you do not have to be a victim of domestic violence. There is help available. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number, once again, is 1-800-799-7233. 1-800-799-SAFE. Or go to www.thehotline.org. Stop a bad situation before it starts. Okay, we are going to roll on with the next article on our docket. If my docket will pull back up, thank you. Next, we have a new judge to oversee. Oh, I see what I did here. I see what I did here. Let me back up. Go to Court TV's main page just to get myself back on track here. And just like that, I'm back on track. We have a new judge to oversee the sentencing oversee Alicia Andrews' sentencing after a successful appeal. Boy, hold on. Here we go. All right. So with that, I am going to take you to Court TV's newest, to a clip from Court TV's newest program, Court of Opinion, with Julia Janae, as she gives our hot take on this particular case.
Woman faces sentencing with a new judge after successfully having the trial judge removed from her case. Alicia Andrews was convicted of manslaughter in October for the shooting death of rapper Charles Jones, who was known as Julio Fulio. Now, Andrews' sentencing was on hold. It was supposed to go forward in December, but it was pending because her attorneys filed an appeal, arguing that the judge in her case was biased and needed to be removed. Judge Michelle Cisco presided over the trial. The defense argued that her conduct prevented them from having a fair judge. They said she exhibited hostility towards the defense. And here's one moment captured on video.
Ms. Herrera, stop. I didn't ask you to talk.
I didn't know I had to ask.
Yeah, you do. You do. Stop, Ms. Herrera, you need to stop right now, because you know what? You've been making faces throughout this entire trial. Yeah, you have been. And your attitude is very disrespectful. I'll note for the record.
And no new sentencing date has been set yet for Alicia Andrews. Maybe we'll have a new trial filed. Richard, what do you think in terms of the judge being removed? I mean, it's a big deal to get a judge removed.
It is a big deal, but you know, we're always trying to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. So here you have a situation where there's a charge of unfairness, and you're at a juncture in the case that you can relatively easily switch out the judge. You're not in the middle of the trial. You're not right before the trial. You're on to a new proceeding. It's judicious and reasonable to put in a new judge at this point.
Good point. Perfect timing, too. C.K. Hoffler, what's your take on this one?
Amazing job by her lawyers. It's very, very, very difficult. I don't care how bad the conduct is, arguably, how much impropriety there is, allegedly, by a judge. It's very difficult, Julia, to get a judge removed. But the other thing I would say about this, you just never know how it's going to play out in the next phase, because this could go on, and it's very, very, very good for this defendant. And I have to say kudos to those lawyers for whatever they argued getting that done.
Marie Pereira, your take on this one, especially now that we have this pending sentencing and we'll have a new judge on the bench.
Say his name, Jeremy McClymont. Jeremy McClymont. I agree with CK. He did a formidable job. Just the strategy of stopping the judge on December 5th when the sentencing was December 8th, and the fact that he had all of the proof of what she did and the way that she appeared to be biased against his team was masterful. And with that, like CK said, it may escalate to the next level.
That's the time, Marie. That's the time. Thank you for that take.
And that was the segment called Hot Takes, Cold Facts on Court TV's Court of Opinion with Julia Janae. And I gotta agree with some things. I mean, just let me put this in terms of being let me put my wrestling fan hat on real quick. I'm gonna use this as a term as being a guest referee. Your job being a guest referee, if you're a wrestler wearing the referee stripes, your job is simply to be unemotional and non-biased. You're in there to see the matchup between two opponents. Your job is either count the submission or the 1, 2, 3. A judge on the bench, his or her job is to listen to the evidence, listen to the testimony, remain as speak Switzerland, be as unbiased, unemotional as humanly possible. I know there's some cases where emotion is going to get involved, but you being the judge, you can't do that. And so my hat goes off to the Alicia Andrews defense team for getting this judge removed. I never thought I would say those words, but here we are. All right, we're gonna go from there to Illinois, where a former Illinois deputy is being sentenced to prison for killing Sonia Massey. Yeah, this was one that had to be seen as well. So once again, we're gonna go back to Julia. We're gonna go beyond the gavel. We're gonna go beyond the gavel for the end result.
Welcome back. Let's go beyond the gavel. In Illinois, former sheriff's deputy Sean Grayson will spend the next 20 years in prison for the killing of Sonia Massey, a mother of 2 who called 911 for help, and yet she never made it out alive. It's all happening the morning of July 6, 2024. Massey, who struggled with her own mental health issues, she called 911 because she said she feared there was a prowler outside of her Springfield home. And Grayson and another deputy, who was not charged in this case, showed up, searched her yard, and then met her inside. And while inside, things escalated pretty quickly after Massey removed a pot of boiling water from her stove. Now, this is the moment that went viral, the body camera footage, and I want to warn you, it is covering something that is disturbing. Take a listen.
I don't know where my item is.
You got it in that stack right there, maybe?
Okay. 1 second.
Check on her.
I need this.
No, we don't need a fire while we're here.
Right. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Where you going?
Huh?
Where you going?
Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
I
rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
You better not. I swear to God, I'll shoot you right in your face.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Drop the pot! Drop the pot! Drop the
14 shots fired.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Drop the pot!
It's so hard to watch, but just know that this is what the jury reviewed and came back with second-degree murder, which was the lesser charge that they were given there in the deliberation room. Grayson, in that video, and of course the medical evidence shows that he shot her in the face. He said he feared Massey would scald him. Now, in the sentencing, there were no cameras allowed, but we have a look from the words that were said inside of that courtroom, where Grayson admitted to wrongdoing for the first time. He told the court, quote, that he had made terrible decisions. The judge, though, wasn't persuaded. He called Grayson's actions an act of unreasonable rage and handed down the maximum sentence. Now, Massey's children also spoke publicly for the first time. Sonia Massey's daughter, Summer, she said her life is never going to be the same, adding that 20 years will never be enough. Her son said the pain from this has been unimaginable. Let's bring in our guest panel to talk about this case. C.K. Hoffler, Richard Schoenstein, and Marie Pereira. CK, I want to start with you on this one. I know you have a unique connection to Chicago and the community work that you do. Tell me what the impact has been for this case, the viral video, and now the 20-year sentence for the defendant.
Absolutely, tremendous impact. I'm chair of the board of Rainbow Push Coalition, and so we do a lot in Chicago, headquartered in Chicago, and I think this is a case that moved everyone, not just in Chicago, but throughout the nation, because when this went viral, it was very clear that she was a helpless woman. And to think that there was a threat, first of all, she was way on the other side of the kitchen area. And they talked about the boiling water. For that to be what he said, that he shot her in the face because he feared that she was going to throw some boiling hot water on him, that is preposterous. And I'm glad that the jury saw through that. I would have liked to have seen first-degree murder. But the judge did give him the maximum sentence. And so I do think while some feel this wasn't enough, at least, as her children said, something, that there was some level of justice with him going away for 20 years. Now, realistically, he probably won't serve 20 years. But at least a jury came back and a judge sentenced him to the maximum amount for the conviction for second-degree murder. So this is forever going to go down as one of the worst, most despicable acts of cowardice when you have a helpless woman, a mother, who clearly did not pose a lethal threat, but yet lethal violence, the worst kind of violence, and to shoot someone in the face. These are trained officers. He knew he was going to shoot her in the face.
Richard, I want to go to you. I want to get your reaction to the sentence, but also he attempted, in terms of the defendant, Grayson, to acknowledge his wrongdoing. He tried to apologize in some regard, and sometimes people say that's what you have to do at sentencing, but many defendants don't even go that far.
Yeah.
Well, he did that, but that contrition comes much too late. Remember, he defended this case. He contested the charges. He pled self-defense. So he fought this. He said he was in the right. That was his position up until today. And only at sentencing does he say, oh, well, golly, I might have made a mistake. And that is too late. You know, the other panelist is absolutely right. This woman was no threat to anybody in this apartment. The video is damning. This was a deputy way out of his league who committed a preposterous act. He is lucky he only got second degree, and he is lucky he only got a 20-year sentence. He'll probably only serve half of that.
Marie, we keep talking about the video. Can you imagine a situation where there would be no video? What would have been the outcome without it?
That's exactly what I was thinking. It would have been, she lunged at me, she went for my gun, and that's why I did what I did. You know, I wonder about someone like that. And I agree with Rich. He's saying, I'm sorry now, but you know what, to me, he's saying it because he's trying to lessen his sentence. That's what he was trying to do. I think it was a complete disregard for her life, and I would love to see his history of contact with people in the community to see if he has a history of violence. Particularly, I want to say against people of color. I don't want to make it like a because she was black thing, but it is so upsetting to me. I'm wondering, why would he so disregard her life like that? Like she was nothing. And like CK said, what water? She was standing so many feet away from him and he's wearing a body vest. So even if she did throw some hot water on him, what damage could he sustain which would justify shooting this poor woman in the face? And if you look at the video from the beginning, she's sitting next to them. He's talking to her on the sofa, and he didn't seem threatened by her. Come on. He treated her like she was nothing.
This case has ignited so many emotions. There were so many protests, and we're seeing this play out from our panel. So we appreciate your opinion.
I gotta agree with a lot of what was said in that video due to and looking at the video from that case all over again. What threat did Sonia Massey have against former deputy Sean Grayson? Oh, she was gonna throw hot water. Really? Come on, man. You can do better than that. 20 years. A lot of people will say a lot of people say that's not enough. I'm probably right in that majority too. But at least there's some satisfaction that one, he was found guilty of murder, second degree, but it's still murder, and he's gonna do time for it. So in a way, I can sum that up in just two little words: justice served. And next up, a man has been sentenced. Let me say that again. A man has been sentenced for killing an Uber driver sent to his house by scammers. I covered this one a while back, and I'm glad we're gonna get the we get the end result. This man, William Brock, was already found guilty. This is in South Charleston, Ohio. Ooh, wait a minute. They said, hang on, guys. Let me see if I can pull this back up. With the because there's supposed to be an article saying what he was sentenced for, and not him just facing sentencing. I guess it is. He is facing sentencing. Okay. All right. So this is what it is, and what it is what it is. We're in South Charleston, Ohio. Ohio man facing life in prison at his sentencing hearing this coming Monday. Earlier this month, a jury convicted William and kidnapping in the March 2024 death of Lolitha Hall. Brock admitting to killing Hall, but said he did so believing that she had been sent to his home by people trying to steal from him. Brock had been targeted by scammers who called his home multiple times that morning, threatening to kill him and his family if he didn't pay $12,000. Investigators say the same scammers set Hall, who was working as an Uber driver, to collect the money. There is no evidence that Hall knew she was part of a scam. In the days following his conviction, more than 80 letters were submitted to Judge Douglas Rastatter ahead of Brock's sentencing, pleading for mercy on the defendant's behalf. Brock's attorney, John Paul Ryan, filed a motion ahead of sentencing asking Rastatter to overturn the jury's verdict and order a new trial. The motion argues that jury instructions in the case were fatally flawed, while prosecutors argued that Hall remained outside of Brock's home. Brock's defense now argues that because she was on the home's attached porch, she was functionally inside the residence, changing the standard for self-defense, because Hall had no legal right to be inside Brock's home. The jury instructions for self-defense were incomplete. The sentencing was initially scheduled for Friday, but postponed till Monday after one of the attorneys suffered a medical emergency in the courtroom. Normally, depending on the case and the charges that goes with it, I normally don't feel sorry for a defendant. This one I kind of do, because he's as much a criminal defendant as he is a victim. He's been hit by a scammer. The victim in this case was also hit by scammers. These scammers worked in concert to bring these two together, and the result was fatal. And now this man William Brock could end up spending the rest of his life behind bars, all because of these scammers. Is it fair? I really don't want to. I really don't want to say no, but this is what happens when you take the law into your own hands. It sucks, but this is what happens when you take the law into your own hands. All right. Jose Ibarra says the defense didn't understand the evidence in his murder appeal. I will spare you the video for this and just go in with the article. Athens, Georgia. Attorneys are expected to appear at a hearing on Friday, which I do have an update for, as convicted killer Jose Ibarra fights for a new trial. Ibarra was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 27 years in prison after a jury convicted him of multiple charges, including malice murder, felony murder, and kidnapping in the death of 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley. Riley was killed while jogging on the campus of the University of Georgia in February 2024. Immediately following his sentencing, Ibarra's attorneys filed a notice of appeal. In a brief file this month, Ibarra argues his trial judge made critical errors when they failed to suppress evidence. Ahead of Ibarra's November 2024 trial, his attorneys flagged concerns about the prosecution's plan to introduce evidence and expert opinion based on the use of TrueLL casework software. In the motion for a new trial, Ibarra's attorneys say they were not given timely access to the raw data, nor were they given time to retain their own expert to analyze it, which prevented them from defending against it. Ibarra's attorneys said their failure to comprehend the data meant they could not cross-examine state witnesses when offered the opportunity. His attorneys said they chose to repeat that they could not understand the evidence. Ibarra's appeal also points to the judge's decision to allow evidence obtained from 2 cellular devices believed to belong to the defendant as a reason to toss the conviction. That hearing was scheduled for Friday, January 30th, which was yesterday. I'm saying yesterday now because it is the early morning hours of January 31st, the last day of the month of January. And this is the update I have for you. This is a DNA expert testifying as the judge weighs new trial for Jose Ibarra. A judge is considering whether to grant a new trial to the Venezuelan man convicted of killing Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. Heard testimony Friday from a DNA expert retained by his attorneys to analyze evidence in his murder case. Jose Ibarra's trial attorneys had asked the judge to delay a hearing set a few weeks before his November trial after the expert told them she would need 6 weeks to review the data and complete a report. The move would have pushed back the trial. Clark County Superior Court Judge H. Patrick Haggard ultimately proceeded with the trial as scheduled. The expert, Ruth Ballard, said during Friday's hearing that she could not rule out the possibility that Ibarra's DNA was transferred onto a jacket and other evidence she reviewed indirectly. Ibarra, dressed in a white jumpsuit, sat at a table with his attorneys under questioning by a prosecutor. Ballard acknowledged she had not finished a complete review of the case. Haggard was not expected to rule immediately on Ibarra's request for a new trial. Haggard heard and decided Ibarra's case after Ibarra waived his right to a jury trial. Ibarra was convicted in November 2024 of murder and other crimes in Riley's death 9 months earlier. 28-year-old Ibarra had entered the U.S. illegally in 2022 and was allowed to stay while he pursued his immigration case. Prosecutors said Ibarra encountered Riley while she was running on the University of Georgia campus in Athens on February 22, 2024, and killed her during a struggle. Riley was a student at Augusta University College of Nursing, which has a campus in Athens, about 70 miles east of Atlanta. Ibarra's lawyers argue that his constitutional rights were violated by the judge's denial of a request for a delay so the defense could have an expert review key evidence and by the admission of cell phone evidence the defense sought to exclude. They are asking that his guilty verdict and life sentence be vacated and that he be granted a new trial. Under Georgia law, a notice of appeal must be filed within 30 days of a conviction becoming final, which is the date of sentencing or the date of the denial of a motion for a new trial, whichever is later. Therefore, the filing of a motion for a new trial effectively extends the deadline to file an appeal. Ibarra's trial attorneys filed a motion for a new trial within weeks of his conviction. New lawyers have since taken over his case and filed an amended motion for a new trial earlier this month. Before trial, Ibarra's lawyers had asked the judge not to allow evidence stemming from the search of 2 cell phones the state believed belonged to Ibarra. They argued that the search warrants used to seize and search the phones were not valid because police lacked probable cause to obtain the warrants. Haggard rejected those arguments. Ibarra's trial attorneys had also asked the judge to exclude evidence and expert testimony based on the use of True Allele casework software that is used to analyze DNA. So it looks like Ibarra's got one heck of a fight on his hands. He is fighting his hardest to get this new trial. We'll see what happens when the judge rules whether he'll get that or not. Okay, next up, and this one, again, I got to go back. Let's see, the copyright is up. Let me back up a bit and put up the trigger warning here, because this is one of the more gruesome cases I have the displeasure of reporting. We're going inside a Facebook marketplace meeting gone horribly wrong, ending with a pregnant mom being stabbed a whopping 70 times. The woman's family called her alleged murder pure evil while her grieving husband said he's going to spend the rest of his life missing her. Here's what you need to know. A pregnant Illinois mother stabbed 70 times during a Facebook marketplace car sale gone wrong. Prosecutors revealed this in court on Thursday, according to ABC 7 Chicago. Eliza Morales, a mother to a 2-year-old girl, was pregnant with her second baby daughter, according to family. 19-year-old Nadas Revukas has been charged with first-degree murder, robbery, arson, homicide of an unborn child, and cruelty to animals. Now that's the short of it. Here's the full article. New details have emerged in a fatal stabbing of a pregnant Illinois mother who was killed during a Facebook marketplace sale gone awry while her husband was at work. ABC7 Chicago reported Thursday that Eliza Morales was stabbed 70 times by a teenager who attacked her at her family's apartment Monday night in Downers Grove, Illinois, a western suburb of Chicago. Morales, a 30-year-old mother to a 2-year-old girl, was 5 months pregnant with her second daughter at the time of her alleged murder. That's according to reports by local WGN, NBC5 Chicago, and ABC7. 19-year-old Neres Revucas appeared in court Wednesday, January 28th, and was charged with first-degree murder, robbery, arson, homicide of an unborn child, and cruelty to animals. The animal cruelty charge reportedly stemmed from Revucas also allegedly harming Morales' dog who attempted to protect her during the attack, according to WGN. Police said Morales' husband, Gabriel Morales, had a pickup truck listed for sale on Marketplace and that Revucas came to the apartment to purchase the truck but became upset about the condition of the vehicle, according to ABC7 and Fox 32. Investigators allege the 19-year-old Westmont, Illinois man decided to take out his frustration on Eliza and attacked her, according to ABC7. Look at this woman. Mother of a 2-year-old and 5 months pregnant with her second daughter. WGN reported that surveillance video showed Morales giving Revucas a screwdriver in order to switch the license plates on the vehicle. But minutes later, footage showed him approach the family's apartment door with the tool behind his back. About 20 minutes later, smoke could be seen coming out of the apartment door. According to the outlet, citing police. Police and firefighters responded to the scene soon after, putting out a fire in the apartment and discovering Morales deceased at the scene. ABC7 reported that police said Morales had attempted to stop Revucas from barging into the apartment and attacking her. Revucas told investigators that his victim had mentioned she was pregnant during the struggle, but police alleged that he continued to stab her dozens of times. Morales' mother-in-law, Angelica Silva, called the attack pure evil, according to ABC7. None of us get it. She did not deserve this, Silva told the outlet. No one deserves anything like this. Gabriel was at work when he said he received a call that his wife and expected second baby daughter had been killed at home, people previously reported. I'm going to spend the rest of my life missing her, the grieving husband told ABC7 earlier this week. I can get every second back with her and just continue to try and live through her for my daughter and continue to be strong for my family. Morales' family set up a GoFundMe to help Gabriel and his surviving 2-year-old daughter. The loss of a beloved wife, daughter, and mother, along with her unborn child, has left pain that words cannot fully express. Morales' family wrote the fundraiser. Eliza leaves behind a devoted husband and a precious, beautiful 2-year-old daughter, the victim's in-laws wrote. She came into our lives with a kindness that felt effortless. She was the type of person who would give the shirt off her back to a stranger. Her generosity wasn't an act. It was her nature. Eliza was a devoted mother, gentle, patient, and fiercely committed to her family. Morales' family added she worked hard, not for recognition, but because she believed in building a strong, loving foundation for her family. Everything she did was rooted in love. That's one of those stories I hate reporting on. I really, really do. But this is also a cautionary tale too. If you're going to sell anything on Facebook Marketplace, and the person who's coming to make the purchase comes where you are, make sure you have somebody with you in case an attack like this occurs. There is strength in numbers. And maybe next time, the next person who the next person who will think of attacking someone innocent and defenseless will think twice before attacking. When you have a second, a third, maybe even a fourth person with you when the sale is supposed to go down. Next, we are under a verdict watch right now in the Au Pair Affair murder trial. Yes, we are under a verdict watch in the Au Pair Affair murder trial. This is day 10, and the closing statements have been given by both sides, and now, as I said, we are facing life in prison if convicted in the deaths of his wife and another man. Brendan Banfield is charged with aggravated murder in the February 2023 deaths of Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan. Prosecutors allege the murders were part of a larger scheme between Brendan and au pair Juliana Perez Magalhães, who were having an affair. On the day of the killings, Magalhães called 911 at least 3 times, hanging up twice before reporting the emergency on the third call. Brendan then spoke into the phone and said he shot a man because that man stabbed his wife, which, according to a report from the Associated Press. Authorities soon arrived at the Banfields' home in Herndon, Virginia, and found that Ryan had been fatally shot and Christine suffered from stab wounds. She was taken to the hospital where she died. The story that Magalhães told police raised suspicion. A months-long investigation revealed that Magalhães and Brendan were lovers. Prosecutors say the two schemed to kill Christine by luring a man to the house to play out a rape fantasy. Ryan accepted the invitation thinking he was meeting Christine for violent sex play and brought a knife and restraints. Magalhães was arrested in October 2023 for the death of Ryan. Brendan was arrested nearly a year later in September 24 for the deaths of Christine and Ryan. The following month, Magalhães pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of Ryan. And in a video by NBC News, she said the plan was masterminded by Brendan to avoid a divorce. And now, after 10 days of testimony, including the decision by Banfield to testify in his own defense, the jury, his fate now lies in the hands of a Virginia jury. And when they come back with a verdict, you can count on it right here, Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, that I will have the update. And let me see. Can I say finally? No, I still have 2 more articles left. Next up, a Michigan mom faces found in filth fraud sentencing before her child abuse trial. A Michigan mother accused of abandoning her 3 children. By the way, this is coming out of Pontiac, Michigan. Michigan mother accused of abandoning her 3 children for years while collecting welfare benefits has pleaded no contest to fraud charges as she awaits trial on more serious child abuse allegations. 34-year-old Kelly Bryant entered the plea of 3 counts of welfare fraud in Oakland County's 6th Circuit Court. Each felony count carries a maximum penalty of 4 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. So let me see. 3 counts of welfare fraud. 4 years in prison for each count. That's 12. A $5,000 fine for each count. That's $15,000. Okay. Bryant's plea was made without any sentencing agreement or promise of leniency from the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, according to a news release from Prosecutor Karen McDonald's office. Sentencing on the welfare fraud charges is scheduled for March 12th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The welfare fraud charges stem from allegations that Bryant collected government assistance from January 1st, 2022 through February 14th, 2025, while not providing care for her children. Court documents indicate Bryant obtained benefits by means of willful false statement or representation for assistance she was not entitled to receive. Bryant still faces trial on 3 counts of first-degree child abuse, which could result in a life sentence if convicted. A pretrial hearing for the child abuse case is scheduled for February 25th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with the trial tentatively set to begin March 2nd. The resolution of the welfare fraud charges in no way impacts the case against Kelly Bryant on the more serious allegations of child abuse, McDonald said. We fully intend to hold her accountable for the abuse these children suffered because of her alleged neglect. The charges stem from a horrifying discovery police made on February 14, 2025, while conducting a welfare check on Bryant. Instead of finding the mother, officers found her 3 children, a 15-year-old boy and his sisters, ages 12 and 13, living alone in deplorable conditions. Police said the children had been abandoned in the Pontiac home for approximately 5 years, living among garbage piled up to 5 feet high. The children's hair was matted, and they were covered in feces when found, according to prosecutors. The children were afraid to come out of their hiding places to speak with police. Police had to repeatedly advise the children that they were there to help and they were safe, McDonald said when the charges were first announced. The home's conditions were so severe that hazmat crews were required for cleanup. At the hospital, the children struggled with basic hygiene tasks like flushing a toilet or brushing their teeth because they hadn't performed these activities in years, McDonald said. Authorities believe the children were between 7 and 10 years old when Bryant allegedly abandoned them. Bryant allegedly lived within a few miles of the home where her children were found. Bryant's defense team has stated she has an unspecified mental health diagnosis for which she received treatment and has no prior criminal history. I truly do not know what to say at this point. I mean, how do you abandon your children for years? No, wait. I think I know the answer to that. You do it when you don't want to take the responsibility of being a mother. And in my eyes, You might as well have killed all three of them, and that would still make you as big a monster as if you did kill them. I'm just saying. And I've got one last article before I go to wrap this thing up. The Utah Supreme Court is going to hear the Petito's family's case against the Moab police. This is in regard to the death of Gabby Petito. We're going back to Salt Lake City, Utah. The family of Gabby Petito will have their case against the Moab Police Department heard in front of the Utah Supreme Court, the law firm representing the family announced. Oral arguments in the case are scheduled for March 4th, according to Parker and McConkey. The case stems from a legal challenge to the dismissal of the Petito family's wrongful death lawsuit against the Moab Police Department and certain officers in the department. That lawsuit was dismissed in November 2024 under Utah's governmental immunity framework. The Petito family has claimed that if officers had followed the law, Gabby would still be alive. They also believe officer negligence contributed to Petito's death. The Petito family and their legal team remain steadfast in their pursuit of justice for Gabby and seeking clarity from the Utah Supreme Court regarding municipal liability and the constitutional right to recover for wrongful death, the law firm wrote in a statement. Petito and her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, had a run-in with Moab police officers in August when a witness said they saw a man identified as Laundrie hitting a woman. After officers pulled over the couple's van, they determined Petito was the aggressor and separated the couple for the night. Officers believe the incident was more accurately a mental/emotional health break than a domestic assault, a police report reads. Attorneys for the Petito family said police should recognize the signs and symptoms of a domestic violence crisis and that the two responding officers intentionally sought out loopholes to avoid enforcement. An investigation into the interaction revealed that the two Moab police officers made several unintentional mistakes, and the department was advised to implement software upgrades and provide additional training. More than a month later, Petito's body was found in the Bridger-Teton National Forest, and her cause of death was determined to be strangulation. Laundrie claimed responsibility for Petito's death before he returned to Florida and died by suicide. The Petito family also sued Laundrie's parents, claiming they knew their son murdered Gabby and helped him leave the country. That lawsuit was settled for $3 million in November 2022. And I will hold off on my commentary for that when we find out more as to what will happen when that case goes to the Utah Supreme Court. All right, so that's gonna wrap up my docket for this week. The only thing left now for me to wrap up this entire edition of The Final Word is my closing argument. And boy, oh boy, what a way to wrap up this entire week in our legal system. But as always, I thank you for joining me. This is my closing argument. Ah, boy, come on now. Give me just a moment, guys. I'm trying to get myself set back up here. There we go. All right, you heard all the cases tonight. So what do we take from all this? Tonight's cases aren't just headlines. They're warnings. They remind us that the greatest dangers often come from the people closest to us. Parents, partners, siblings, spouses, neighbors, even those sworn to protect and serve. We saw children betrayed by the adults meant to raise them. We saw women betrayed by the men who claimed to love them. Families destroyed from the inside out. And communities left to pick up the pieces after violence that should have never happened. But we also saw something else. The judicial system. Slow, imperfect, human, still pushing forward. Appeals courts affirming convictions. Judges denying bond when the risk is too great. Prosecutors uncovering patterns of predation. Juries weighing evidence. New judges stepping in when fairness demands it. Sentences handed down not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. Justice doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't bring back the dead. It doesn't heal every wound. But justice does speak. It says, we saw what happened. We name it. We confront it. We will not let it stand unanswered. And that's why we cover these cases. Not to sensationalize tragedy, but to honor truth. Not to dwell in darkness, but to expose it. Not to glorify violence, but to insist on accountability. Because when we shine a light on what is broken, we create the possibility, however small, however fragile, of something better. This is the final word. And tonight the final word is vigilance. Vigilance for our families, vigilance for our communities, and vigilance for the truth. And until justice is done, fully, fairly, and fearlessly, we will not look away. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you all so much for joining me for the final word. I can't express how much you guys are the heartbeat of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. And let's try to do this again sometime soon. Who knows? A Saturday night's main event, a midweek bite. Either way, let's do it. Let's do this again sometime. All right. So let me go ahead and give you that signature reminder of where you've been all this time. If you've been with me for the last few hours, you know that this is your home for true crime news without the drama, where your opinions matter, where lively debates are encouraged, your voice is heard, and above all else, justice is served. And how do we do it? With no gimmicks, no drama, and most certainly, no BS. Thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw, and this is Bethea'S Byte. And it's reloaded.
Thank you so much for joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Please be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media and support the channel through PayPal and Cash App. You can get your true crime news right here with no gimmicks, no drama, and no BS. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.